Hey guys, and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. This week I want to take a closer look at the pedal that I've actually, kind of referenced or played through in a couple of prior episodes of Friday Fretworks, but never really given it a more in-depth run through. And it's definitely the pedal that is deserving of a little bit more time spent on it, just because of the fact that whenever it is mentioned in pretty much any context, generally sparks a lot of discussion or a lot of intrigue, a lot of mythology, just generally a lot of questions. In regard to, its origin, who it's made by, how much is it, is there a waiting list, all these kind of questions that generally surround any kind of mythical overdrive pedal. I realise that phrase is pretty much under license for another overdrive pedal that I've looked at before, but in case you hadn't guessed from the title of the video, the whole point of this week is the Hamida Audio Zendrive, and more largely, is it worth the hype? This is obviously a question that I've kind of tackled in recent videos with different pedals, and as I've kind of stressed in those videos, that's a question that only you can answer by playing it. It's a question that I can kind of throw my 2 cents in and say, at least from my end, whether I think it's worth the hype or whether it's worth the price tag or whether it's worth the whatever. But in regard to whether you like it, that's obviously then entirely dependent on whether you think it is worth the hype. It's just a personal thing, and it's just, to be honest, something to entice people into the video. But I digress. This is a pedal with, as most pedals, I guess, a history, but a particularly intriguing history. Originally made by Alfonso Hamida, who has a background, bizarrely, in NASA kind of scientific instruments and all that kind of stuff, which is quite incredible. Started building the pedals in the 90s and was so inspired by a recording he heard of Robin Ford. Now, if you're not familiar with Robin Ford, do go check him out. Phenomenal. I wouldn't even call him out and out blues, to be honest. It would probably be doing him a disservice. Jazz kind of influenced, very dynamic, just a fantastic player. Alfonso was so inspired by this recording he heard of Robin Ford on a Beatles Tribute album, I do believe, that he was inspired to try and create a pedal that nailed that tone. That tone, of course, if you're familiar with Dumble, familiar with Robin, give the game away, being a Dumble overdrive special. Which brings me on to a larger point, I guess, in that the phrase the Dumble sound, I'm going to go off on a mini rant here, is a kind of misnomer, because you would struggle to say what is the Fender sound, what is the Fender amp sound, as much as over the years they've had different models. Is the Fender amp sound a cranked basement? Is it a kind of, a super, which isn't going to break up hardly at all? What is it? Is it Hot Rod DeVille more recently? As with any amp brand, Dumble, there's a couple of different models within that kind of range, I guess. With Robin, it's the Overdrive Special, which is a kind of saturated, smooth singing kind of overdrive. But then you have maybe the Steel String Singer, which, if you're familiar with Stevie Ray or Bonnie Raitt or any of the guys that have used those, Jackson Browne, John Mayer, it's a high headroom clean machine. Basically, just, not really designed to distort, just punchy, ballsy, kind of clean, slightly mid-rangey, I guess, more mid-rangey than a Fender. Just a chesty, big, clean sound. So in that respect, what is the Dumble sound? But I digress. Alfonso, so inspired by this recording of Robin Ford, decided to basically try and create a pedal that nailed that tone. Eventually got one in the hands of Robin Ford, who a couple of months later hadn't given him any feedback, at least that's my understanding of the story. But then Alfonso started receiving phone calls from fans in the countries that Robin was touring in, just basically asking what this incredible overdrive pedal was. And it's got to the point now where I think Robin uses this pretty much exclusively whenever he can't get his hands on his Dumble. I don't know whether he uses it with the rig with a Dumble. He might well do, but if he's kind of playing through a rented backline or an amp, maybe a Hot Rod Deluxe or whatever he's faced with when he arrives at a venue, plugs a Zendrive into it to pretty much nail that kind of, dynamic response that you get out of a Dumble. And in that respect, that's why this pedal is so revered, so talked about, and so intriguing as to whether a pedal can truly create or capture that kind of tonal characteristics and dynamic range of $100,000 amp, or at least these days. As I said, Robin's been using this for donkey's years now, and it's synonymous with him, to be honest. It's not his signature pedal, but it is, as much as it's just very much associated with Robin. They're now produced, Alfonso, I think the design hasn't changed since 2004, but I'm not sure at which point recently they've started being manufactured by Love Pedal, or under license, shall we say, by Love Pedal. Love Pedal, if you're not familiar with them, Shawn Michael, the guy at Love Pedal, fantastic designer and pedal maker in his own right. I play a couple of love pedals and have done numerous demos over the years on my channel. Do check them out. But now, Sean is making the Zendrive and the license, and you can order it directly through his website. So there's no waiting list, there's no nonsense like that. I say nonsense, you know what I mean. Nothing stopping you getting your hands on one very quickly. I think Anderton's actually selling them in the UK, so in that respect, it's one of those pedals that holds a lot of intrigue for probably not many reasons, aside from the fact that it sounds incredible. So I've pretty much answered my perspective there as to whether I think it's worth the hype. Bizarrely, it's not been on my board in a long time, and that's not any kind of reflection on the pedal so much as just I like changing overdrive pedals, and this was a staple on my board for the longest time, then kicked off for maybe the King of Tone or any kind of overdrive pedal I've been using recently, but will no doubt find its way back on pretty soon, I imagine. It's particularly good, at least to my ear, with humbuckers or with P90s, anything that kind of really you associate more with Robin Ford, which is why today I'm going to be using this guitar, which you may not have seen before. It is a rather gorgeous 1966 335, which I shall no doubt do a dedicated episode on at some point soon. So, as ever, thank you very much for watching. I hope you get something from this. I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, please don't forget to subscribe. Check me out on Facebook, on Instagram. It's all at Chris Buck Guitar. And I shall see you next week, as ever, for another episode of Friday Fretworks. Cheers, guys. Take care.